world today, and that's the key for us to be able to reach out to the industry, and that's kind of the link here between SSAB, Hardox, and JNE. Just so we make that clear. We can move to the next slide. And I think one of the biggest topic for us today and for Jimmy Allen is, of course, to try to clarify the difference with our Hardox and the regular AR in the industry. So with that short introduction from SSAB, I would like to hand over to you, Jimmy. And once again, Adam, Brent, Graham, thank you guys for inviting us to this session.
If I could just make a couple of comments.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Tobias, for that fantastic overview. So my name is Chris King. I'm based in Winnipeg. I joined SSAB in April of last year, and I would say for about the year preceding that, I believe we were without a rep in this area. So I've filled that void, if you will, and so it's been an interesting time to join a new company. I was at a steel mill about 20 miles to the north of my house here in Winnipeg with the Gerdau Group for about 12 years. That was a completely different steel experience than this one. So what I find exciting about SSAB is, as Tobias shared, the branding is an exciting dynamic. The Hardox name is one I knew I knew in a painful way when I was competing with Hardox. So I'm glad to be part of that group now. They're very well known in the trade show and sort of all the mining applications is something where they're well known. So happy to be part of the group, and I think so I'm based in Winnipeg, looking after Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and the whole lunch and learn, and it's been an interesting time to join SSAB with the virtual aspects that we're having to contend with. So I've not had the pleasure of visiting Adam and Graham and the team in Saskatoon there at JNE. So I haven't even met many of my colleagues. Tobias and Jimmy have not met face to face, in person rather. So so that's just a little bit of background with me. So any I would work with as a regional sales manager with Graham and folks like him, just to make sure that the end users are getting what they need from us, and again, working through JNE as a wear parts member. So it's an exciting time to be in steel, and look forward to meeting you and learning from this presentation. This lunch and learn today is really it's a first for me, so it's a bit of a learning experience to watch my colleagues Tobias and Jimmy and how they go through this. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry that I didn't introduce you properly. Just one comment here also on the presentation. We are going to share this presentation, Graham, I would expect, with the audience here. So you guys will be able to have this presentation offline, as well as the contact to Chris King in Winnipeg. Sorry, Jimmy. Please, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Tobias. Like I said, I'm Jimmy Allen. I'm what they call a technical development manager for SSAB. I've been with SSAB now a little over 21 years. Actually worked in the mill in Mobile, Alabama. So I worked in the melt shop area for several years before moving into a management position, and then now with the Special Steels Group. So we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, please, add them to the chat, or we'll try and answer as much as we can at the end. I'm going to kind of go through a lot of this stuff kind of quickly so we can get done in a timely fashion. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat area, and we will answer as many questions as we can. And also at the end of the presentation, there is a slide with mine and Chris King's contact information, and you can feel free to contact us at any time for more information. So with Hardox versus just standard AR, most AR plate comes in like an AR 200, AR 400, AR 450, and AR 500. And some people even make what they call AR 450F or 500F, which means it's just more formable. Generally, people use this more when they're actually forming the product instead of just using it in in the flat plate forming. But with Hardox, the thing about Hardox is we guarantee better bending properties with Hardox. So our bend radiuses are much tighter with Hardox than you find with standard AR. And we actually have a guarantee for the bend radius for Hardox. Also, if you look at like the hardness and the typical yield strength, generally those are going to be about the same because the hardness and the strength, the tensile strength are directly correlated. So if you have a plate that's 450 Bernal, the tensile strength and yield strength will be about the same regardless of who it's made by. One of the other good things about Hardox is our typical impact Sharpie toughness values are generally much higher than what you find with standard AR plate. And our CEV values are carbon equivalent values, which gives you a good indication to how weldable it is. It's generally much lower than what you find with other generic AR plates. All right, and the CEV is really basically a calculation based on the chemical elements that are in that steel. So the lower the CEV means it's usually much easier to weld. So really one of the big benefits with Hardox is consistency. We work a lot to make a very clean steel and make sure it is very consistent. And what I mean about consistency is like we want to see consistent properties across the plate surface and through the steel. So this is a chart showing a typical AR 450 with the gray line that's 20 millimeters thick. And then the blue line is a Hardox 450. They're both 20 millimeters thick. Well, with Hardox, you can see how the line is very close to that 450 Bernal, where the competitive AR, it goes anywhere from 420, 425 Bernal all the way up to around 460 Bernal. So there's can be a big difference throughout that plate, and that can cause uneven wear, especially in high wear applications. Now, with Hardox, we actually guarantee that the hardness on the plate will be 10 Bernal points anywhere across the surface of that plate. Now, when we talk about through hardness on Hardox, we actually guarantee that the hardness at the center of the plate will be at least 90% of the hardness of that plate for Hardox. And this is a chart showing Hardox 550 at 40 millimeter. And so if you go across the chart from left to right at the 20 millimeter mark, so the center of the plate, we see our lowest measurement, but it's still not below that 525, which is the minimum hardness for Hardox 550. And so this is really important, whenever you have large plates or thicker plates that are wearing, as you get closer to the center of that plate, some competitors we see you could drop 100 Bernal points and then you're going to wear much quicker at the center of the plate than you do at the surface. So this is just a chart showing Hardox 450 versus a typical AR. And the Hardox 450 on the left chart is the gray line up at the top, and it's basically the hardness through the thickness of the plate. And the red line shows a competitive plate. And if you look at the chart on the right, what this is showing you is the relative service life. So because there's a difference between the two plates on the hardness, especially through the center of the plate, with Hardox 450, for a 25 millimeter plate, we can see approximately a 10% increase in relative service life just switching from a typical AR 450 to a Hardox 450. And this becomes even greater, say, when you go to something like a 50 millimeter or 2-inch plate, then you look at the graph to the right, the relative lifetime, it can be a little over 20% improvement just switching to Hardox 450. So a lot of people, they look at they say, well, what's the cheapest price? But with Hardox, we're looking to create value, not just sell you a cheap plate. We're trying to make sure that the plates we sell you are plates that will give you good performance and longer lifetimes and a much more consistent wear. As a lot of mines, we know they typically want to have a regular scheduled maintenance interval, and they don't want to have, unpredictable downtimes. So this is basically micrograph showing a typical AR plate, and what you can see in the top left picture and the bottom right picture, the top and bottom pictures, you can see that, at the surface of the plate, the grain structure is somewhat different. So what happens is whenever you take a hardness measurement on a plate, if you don't grind down far enough through that top layer, then your hardness measurement is not going to directly represent what you see throughout the body of that plate. So you can actually have a much different hardness value at the surface of the plate than what you do at the center of the plate. And then if you look at the picture to the far right, what we say is half T or half the thickness, you can actually see a void, or actually it's an elongated manganese sulfide inclusion that's right at the center of that plate. And so you would definitely see a much different wear property throughout the center of that plate than you would at the top and surface, or the top and bottom surfaces of that plate. So the next big thing for Hardox is very good toughness. That Hardox was actually designed in Sweden, so it is meant to be used in very cold climates. Most of our Sharpie toughness values are taken at minus 40 degrees Celsius. So, and we have a lot of customers, even up in northern Canada, that use Hardox and other types of mining that regularly see minus 50 degrees. So it's not uncommon to see Hardox being used in very cold climates, but it exhibits very good toughness values. So this is just basically a chart showing the toughness values, or what we call the Sharpie impact toughness. So it's how tough is the steel and how resistant is it to cracks. So if you look at the red line, that is the old Hardox values. And basically, that's what we used to see, say, about 5 to 10 years ago. But today, if you look at the 450 Brinell hardness, the green dot at the top, we're seeing, impact or Sharpie impact toughness values of around 50 joules at minus 40 C. And then, a lot of our closest competitors are down around 30 joules at minus 40 C. So we can see a lot better impact toughness in those applications where the plate is being put under a lot of impacts. And then the other thing is, a lot of people say, well, you get to the harder steels and, then you cannot form them. They're harder to work with. But with Hardox 450 and Hardox 500, especially the new 500 Tough, that's just not the case. This little cup that you see in the picture was actually formed out of 4mm Hardox 450, and it was press formed cold, so no heat added. And we actually have some that was formed out of Hardox 500 as well. And so, I mean, the Hardox steels are very formable and very easy to work with. So the main thing that we really see, going from a milder steel, like a 50 KSI steel, to something like a Hardox 450, then it can take the impact and it can resist the dents a lot better than a softer, milder steel. And basically, this chart shows that a mild steel that's a 50 KSI would sustain a dent depth of around 30mm, as compared to, say, a Hardox 450 would only have the dent depth of about 10mm. And this is based on the same weight being dropped on the steel from the same height and with the same radius tip on that. We actually have a drop test rig that has been built and we use in Oxelson, Sweden. So we actually have plate samples that we put into the rig. You can load a certain amount of weight onto it, and then you drop them from a set height. So we can actually measure the dent depth that we see, and actually see, if the plate would crack depending on the amount of impact that the plate would sustain. So one thing that is kind of neat, I know a lot of people like to see videos, but this video is of a container. So it's a Hardox 450 3/16" sidewalls with a 1/4" floor. And so this is what we call the wrecking ball video. And so you can see when the wrecking ball hits the side, it can take, a lot of abuse and a lot of deformation. And the top rail, or the top section of the container, is also made out of Hardox 450. So like Tobias was saying earlier, we are a steel mill. That's really, we need people like JNE, but we partner with companies like JNE. They are, they're integral to our process as we make the full steel plates, and we need people like JNE who can actually turn them into, usable products for the end users. And with us being the steel mill, we work on, especially with Hardox brands and Strengths brands now, we work on making steel that is a much cleaner steel than that was produced 5 to 10 years ago. And we pride ourselves on making some of the cleanest steel in the industry. And there's a lot of that goes into the processing of the steel, because we work very hard to make steel that is very tough and very consistent. And we also want to make sure that that the steel is being able to be used in the workshop in a good way. So one of those ways is, through the processing of the steel itself. And instead of adding a lot of alloys to try and meet certain mechanical properties of the steel, we actually do it through the processing of our steel, such as through our quench and temper lines. So one of our process routes is called the vacuum tank degasser. And what that does for us is that helps us to really reduce 5 of the big elements that can cause issues to the workability of the steel. One of those being oxygen, there's hydrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and nitrogen. Now these all can lead to, inclusions, cracking, and also reducing the toughness of the steel. So when we really work on reducing these elements in the steel, then we have much more consistent properties, much better Sharpie impact toughness. The bendability becomes much better, the formability, and especially the weldability. So with SSAB and our quench lines are actually designed by SSAB internal. We send some portions of the quench lines themselves are built by external customers or vendors or contractors, but everything is brought into the SSAB site and assembled on site. So no one has the full plans for the SSAB quench lines. Like I said, we design, especially the quench box, we design all the elements and have portions of it built. So we assemble it all on site and have the complete plans ourselves. We actually spend a lot of time doing the research and development on quenching for SSAB plate. Now, our quench is what we call a roller quench. So we use around 35,000 gallons of water per minute, and the water is actually monitored for chemistry and temperature. So, we want to make sure that the water is consistent to completely cool that plate within seconds. And we can actually quench a plate from 900 degrees C down to less than 50 degrees C in under a minute, and that's even for a 1-inch thick plate. Now what this does is this creates a martensite structure throughout the steel. It also has a very consistent grain structure. We have less alloys needed to achieve the hardness, and this also helps us to have a uniform through hardness. So like we were talking about earlier, the through thickness hardness of that plate is very consistent, very even. Some of the Hardox plate products, we have anything from what we call Hardox High Tough, which is around a 350 Brinell hardness, all the way up to what we call Hardox Extreme, which is like a 60 Rockwell C. And the plate thicknesses, we have anything from, say, 3 millimeter all the way up to a little over 6-inch thick plates, depending on the grade that you're looking at. But like a Hardox 450, we can make it all the way up from, say, 3.2 millimeter all the way up through almost around, I think a little over 5-inch, maybe even 6-inch today. We also produce some strip product or coil products. So basically, these are much thinner gauges and they're limited on width, but have very good surface properties, very good flatness and surface finish. But we produce anything from like a Hardox 400 all the way up through a Hardox 500 tough, and varying thicknesses depending on the grade, but anywhere from like 2 millimeter up to 8 millimeter. We also have what we call Hardox 450 cold rolled from 0.7 millimeter up to 2.1 millimeter. So we have a wide range of grades and varying thicknesses to cover, you know, whatever your needs may possibly be. So Hardox and potash mining. So a couple of our newer products are Hardox 500 Tough and Hardox High Ace. Well, the Hardox 500 Tough is basically a 500 Brinell plate that has a lot of the same mechanical properties as a Hardox 450. So we've worked with a lot of mines before, and a lot of them want to be able to use a 500 Brinell plate in place of their 450 Brinell areas for something that will last longer, but also work as well. Not it's something that they can form and something that would be easier for welding. And the Hardox High Ace is basically like a Hardox 450 that's crossed with what we call a Core 10 or a corrosion resistant material. So it has very good corrosion resistant properties, and it's also a 450 Brinell wear plate. So the Hardox 500 Tough is what we call the new wear steel. So a lot of the dump bodies, mining dump bodies, buckets, that sort of thing, are starting to use a Hardox 500 Tough. And it comes available anywhere from 3 millimeter up to 25.4 millimeter or 1 inch. So with the Hardox 500 Tough, it's a lot of the same, very close in mechanical properties to a Hardox 450, but it's got the 500 Brinell hardness. Its nominal is 490 Brinell, but it has a tighter hardness range than a typical AR 500 plate. The typical impact toughness value for Hardox 500 Tough is 45 joules at minus 40 C. And we actually have a guarantee on 500 Tough, which is 27 joules at minus 20 C. So if we put this into, you know, relative terms, so basically going from like a Hardox 400 to or AR 400 up to a Hardox 500 Tough, you can see a little over 60% increase in service life. And even from like a 450 Brinell steel to 500 Tough, you can see anywhere from 35 to 40% increase in service life. And then if you look at dent resistance, so if you have a container or dump body or something that's taking a lot of impact and abuse, we've seen where 1/4 inch Hardox 450 going to Hardox 500 Tough 3/16 of an inch thick, it's taking the same dent resistance as the Hardox the 1/4 inch Hardox 450. So the 1/4 inch Hardox 450 and the 3/16 500 Tough would have about the same wear life and also the same denting resistance. So we have a lot of dump body manufacturers that are upgrading, going thinner with the Hardox 500 Tough, and so it makes their dump body or their container lighter so they can carry more load, and they're having the same lifetime out of their product. Now, like I said, with the High Ace, the Hardox High Ace, it's a 450 Brinell steel. very good Sharpie toughness values. Its minimum Sharpie is a 27 joules at minus 20 C, but it's got that corrosion resistance that really helps. So with the Hardox High Ace, it's got the same bending properties as Hardox 450. The main thing with Hardox High Ace is there's no preheat for 8mm plates and below, but anything above 8mm, it needs to be welded with a stainless consumable or at least preheated up to 150 degrees C for welding. The Hardox High Ace has more alloying elements to it, so to help resist the corrosion, which is why it calls for more preheat than a standard AR 450 or Hardox 450 plate. Now in Sweden, we actually, in our R&D facility in Sweden, we have what we call a drum wear test. And basically it's a drum where we load, I want to say it's like 27 or 30 samples into it. And each sample is milled to size and weighed prior to going into the drum. And each sample is mounted in the drum, and then they can load a different type of media. And this one has some water and some chlorides added to it. That way you get more of a corrosive wear inside the drum. And so we can see, you know, what the actual wear rates are coming out of the drum. So after we tumble this drum for several days, can take those samples out, weigh each sample, so we know what the wear or the mass loss is for each one, and correlate it to a wear life increase for each plate. And what we have seen, so Hardox High Ace, we've actually seen about double the life over a Hardox or AR 400 for something that has around 300 ppm of chlorides, and so about a pH of 6. And we've actually seen better wear life out of the Hardox High Ace compared to some stainless steels, where we're seeing, you see the corrosion plus the abrasive wear. So this is not just strictly a corrosive environment. You're actually seeing the corrosion plus the wear. Now, like I was saying earlier, in a lot of our dump bodies, container manufacturers are included in our Hardox in My Body program. And basically what this does is this allows them to put the Hardox in My Body stickers on their products. And it shows their customers that, you know, the products they build have Hardox plate in them. And this is really good for them for selling points. And I've even had a lot of them say that, you know, their customers get better resale value out of their products just because it's got the Hardox in My Body sticker on it. And this is kind of like the side or the same program as the Hardox wear parts that JNE is part of. This is just strictly more for like tipper container manufacturers and bucket manufacturers. So some of the mobile equipment applications. So if we look at like hydraulic mining shovels, you know, we have a lot of different products that can be used for these types of buckets, and basically, you know, anything from Hardox High Tough, Strengths 100, which is similar to a QT 100. We also have, you know, Hardox 500 and 550 that we can use for wear packages on these buckets as well, and improve the service life by up to 36%. So for underground buckets, you know, cutting edge can be Hardox 500 or Hardox 550, varying thicknesses. You know, it really just depends on your application and what you're looking to achieve. We upgrading from, say, like a AR 400 to Hardox 500, you can see double the service life many times. And this is a customer case, so basically increased the service life by 36%. They upgraded to a Hardox 550. So basically a lot of it was AR 400 and 500, and basically did a direct correlation to the Hardox 500 and Hardox 550 and see a 36% increase in service life. So another one is front loader buckets. This one has the the front lip or cutting edge area is Hardox High Tough and or Strength 700. And we have these, this thickness was 120 millimeter, but we make the High Tough and Strength 700 up through 6 inches thick. This is another one, service life increased by 40% by upgrading to Hardox 550. So basically going from a Hardox 500 to a Hardox 550. And basically what they did is actually use Hardox 500 on one side of the bucket and use Hardox 550 on the other side of the bucket, so we could see the wear life in the mine at the same time. So we could actually do a straight comparison of the wear life at one time to the other. This is a slide basically showing a short list of a lot of the mines that we have worked with for Hardox 500 Tough liner projects over the past couple of years. And so basically a lot of the mining dump beds and truck bed liners we've worked with, trying to get liner projects and to start trialing the Hardox 500 Tough. And some of these mines today are only using the Hardox 500 Tough for their dump bed liners. This is another case of Hardox 450 versus a 500 Tough. This one, they saw an increase of 25% in service life, but basically just going from the Hardox 450 to 500 Tough, the same thickness, just increase in the hardness, and they could see increase in service life. This is just a kind of like a brief cost comparison based on going from Hardox 450 3/16 and 1/4 inch and going to a Hardox 500 Tough option that is 4 millimeter or 1.157 and 3/16 of an inch. So basically the results that we could see, you could see a weight savings of around 22%, but also you see a cost difference in the steel. Your steel costs actually are reduced by about 11% because we were able to reduce the thickness of the steel, and you could see where you can keep the same relative service life of your equipment, a lighter option, and have a better cost structure. Now this is another customer case with a dozer blade. So basically they did a lot of increasing in a lot of the bad wear areas or the worst wear areas. Say like in the lower sections, do more of the harder Hardox, say the Hardox 600 and the Hardox 550, and then can work your way up through say a Hardox 500 and even up to Hardox 450. But basically, can increase the service life by around 30%. So some processing equipment, so things such as grizzly bars, and the picture on the right, I guess they were just trying to make it last, but that's not a very good application there. But with the Hardox grizzly bars, we've had customers use anything from like a Hardox 450 1/2 inch, a Hardox 450 2 inch, and I mean it definitely can go up to say Hardox 500. And especially the new Hardox 500 Tough for some of these applications. And dump pocket protection. So you definitely don't want to be the guy in the cat on the right side, because that is not a fun day. Let's see, loading system and silos. This one was lined with Hardox 600 5/8 7-inch thick, and mounted with so studs welded to the back side of the plate, and then mounted in through the side walls of the silo. The mobile crusher hopper liner plates. So these plates were actually installed with bolts that's drilled and chamfered. So people like JNE, I mean, that's what they're good at, is being able to take the Hardox product and produce plates, and be able to produce these liner plates in a usable fashion, so you can actually install them. And they have a lot of different ways to come up with these sort of different arrangements to be able to mount the plates to match what your needs are. So this is a chute for an iron ore, so basically lined with Hardox 600. And then apron feeder. So usually the pans are manganese casting. And so we've actually had some customers that's actually started making them out of, say, Hardox 450 or a Hardox 500 tough. And this can help by making them more cost effective and then a little easier to produce and change out. And then another one is a hammer crusher for limestone. So basically they upgraded the bars, the wear bars from Hardox 500 to Hardox 600. They were 50 by 50 millimeter. So basically 2-inch by 2-inch, and they were cut by plasma. So the Hardox 600 pretty much doubled the wear life. If you look at the picture on the left, you see how the bars have been worn quite a bit. And the Hardox 600, still looks very good. So they're estimating about double the service life going from the Hardox 500 to 600. Earlier we looked at the kind of like the relative wear life, which came from our wear calc simulation. So basically what we're saying, you go from an AR 400 or Hardox 400 up to the Hardox 500 tough. For this, we can see a cost difference where you can actually have a savings of around 16% going from an AR 400 to Hardox 450. Or if you go up to a Hardox 500 tough, you can actually see a cost saving or a cost difference of around 21%. So the cost per hour and the cost per ton are reduced by the service life increase of the steel. So the big conclusions for Hardox, basically we have flatness guarantees, bending guarantees, thickness guarantees, and our flatness and thickness guarantees, they are better than ASTM standards. They're better than EN standards. And we also have a carbon equivalent guarantee. So that guarantees, you're going to get good welding results every time. And our plates are very consistent from, say, one day to the next or 1 month to the next and year over year. We also have local warehouse stocks. So we have a lot of locations that we stock plate, and then also like JNE, they have a lot of our material in their stock, so they can easily pull stuff out and produce parts for you very quickly. We have the most advanced quench and temper line in the world, and we have 2-tier technical support. I'm one of the frontline technical support managers, but we also have an R&D facility in Montpelier, Iowa, and we have what we call our Knowledge Service Center over in Sweden that can back us up with much more technical knowledge. We also have our marketing and brand programs like our Hardox Semi-Body, and then our local wear parts centers. Like I said, JNE is one of our wear parts centers, and that's why we partner with people like them. And here are our contacts. The one for Chris King, he is the regional sales manager for your area, and I am the technical development manager for your area. So if you have any questions or if you ever need assistance, you can reach out to me and Chris, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Jimmy Allen.
Yeah, great job, Jimmy. So, folks, questions. We've got some time here to address questions that you might have, technical or otherwise. Go ahead and stick them in the chat, or just come off mute and ask away.
So Graham, hey, it's Eric Anderson here with SIMSA. Sometimes these questions take a bit to come in and people formulate and type, so we'll kill some time. There was a great presentation. It was nice to see it was great to see, some of the reduced weight and with the maintaining strength and saving money on installation and then probably in repair down the road and service length. So it's quite the neat thing to see going on here. And it's great to see JNE providing that here in Saskatchewan. So folks, if you got any questions, come on, pipe up. You've got technical people online. You've got some JNE folks online. You've got, ask the people that make the stuff and ask the questions. You can either just unmute your line if you want and just ask, or type in your question and they'll get to you right away over in the chat side.
Thank you, Eric. And if the questions comes up here, Graham, afterwards to you, feel free to just contact us or go through JNE, and then we're happy to help to provide an answers. I have a question to you, Graham, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but when it comes to trials, if we now see that, hey, we might would like to try some of these high A's, or we would like to try some of the other grades. How does that look like? Can we get some help from JNE now to get some trials going and work together with you guys, or what is your comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a piece of equipment that somebody wants to trial Hardox in, you just get us a drawing, get us a picture, get us something that we can work with, and we'll sit down with our design team and Jimmy and come up with a solution. We actually worked on one like that just last month with one of the potash mines. They had an elbow that was dropping out of the top of a crusher. It was the overflow off the top of a crusher, and the bottom, the corner of the elbow was wearing pretty aggressively. So we came up with a new chute design there with Hardox in the contact point. We deal with those kinds of things all the time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Graham. And I think that's if there's no any other questions now, we really appreciate the opportunity, JNE, to get in front of all this audience. And again, we are here to help. So feel free to reach out to us whenever, or shoot a question here in the question field.
Yeah, probably a little follow-on call to action here. We have done this webinar, but we're also happy to do lunch and learn sessions with you folks in your individual organizations. Not everybody could get to this webinar. So if you have a team of 4, 5, 6 people and you've got some good technical questions, and you want to spend some time dedicated to your project, your customer base, your opportunity, just let me know, and we'll get Jimmy and Chris and Tobias as they're available on the phone and do a follow-up with you individually. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and Graham, is this presentation available after, or how does that work?
It will be. Yeah, I'll get you a PDF, Eric, and then you and I can figure out how to get the PDF and the link to the recording out to the attendees.
Great, sounds good. Thank you. Are there any questions still, folks? I see some people have left. Somebody had a question about Donald Trump joining the meeting, and yes, he is here, according to the registration anyway.
Here's a question for you, Tobias and Jimmy. Does SSAB guarantee yield strength / tensile strength for Hardox plates?
Not yield strength, no. Yield strength and tensile strength are basically there for information. They're not guaranteed. We only guarantee the hardness, sometimes Sharpie toughness, like on 500 tough. But so the hardness is directly correlated to the tensile strength.
So if we're looking for situations where that needs to be guaranteed, there's a different product selection there, right? That would tend more towards the strengths product, Jimmy?
Well, that would just depend. I mean, we have had the instance where someone wanted a Hardox, but they wanted the tensile strength on it as well. That can be ordered, but it needs to be ordered from the mill, and it needs to be written on the PO at time of purchase. That way we can make sure that the mill takes the correct testing is done prior to leaving the mill.
Okay. So by kind of upon request, Graham, if it makes sense, upon request, we can provide that information as well.
Yeah. Does that help, Michael? Any other questions, folks? Good deal. Okay. I think that's it. If those of you familiar with how Teams work, I think you'll find that this chat stays active in your Teams forever. So if you do have a question, I'll be able to get it in this chat window here. If you join Teams as a guest, that doesn't work quite as well. So just feel free to email myself, Jimmy, Chris, or really anybody else at SSAB or JNE will get the answers over to you. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for making Eric look good with an amazing number of registrants and attendees.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
thanks everybody for signing in. I mean, we had close to 80% of the registrants actually sign up, attend the event. So, you know, the typical event like this is at 50%, so we're closer to 80. So that's pretty good. So I think it's a tribute also to JNE, tribute to the product. You know, there's an interest in it, so it's great to see. And our members, you know, doing what they say they're going to do, and they say they're going to show up, they actually show up. That's another great thing to see. Whoops, I got one more question here. Actually, is it more difficult to get a blast? I'll let you read it there.
Yeah, is it more difficult to get a blast profile for coating to a tier 2? So how does Hardox perform in sandblasting, Jimmy? Do you guys have any experience with that?
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with sandblasting it. I mean, it does come blasted and primed. So, I mean, it would perform equally as well as most any other AR plate. I mean, it's got a pretty hard surface, so, but it will blast and paint just like any other AR plate would.
I hope that answers your question, Roger. Well, I think now for sure, maybe.
We'll find one more.
Maybe for sure, perhaps we're done. But I'll leave the chat line open here. I'm not going anywhere. I can leave the chat screen open for a few minutes. We're officially done with the presentation portion. So thank you to JNE. Thank you to Simpson for showing up. I'll leave the chat open. You know, if you're shy and you want to have a quiet conversation with Graham, I could, you know, maybe post his cell number on the internet somewhere, and you can talk to Graham, or anyway, you can talk about hockey and how great the Swedish team is, or something like that. I'm not sure what you'd want to talk to offline, but that's another topic later. Anyway, thank you so much, folks. It's been a great day. It's warming up. We're in good shape. The vaccines are rolling out, and the world's turning into a better place. So thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, JD.
Thank
you. Have a good weekend, gentlemen.
I guess we can probably stop the recording, Eric?
Okay.
Save the bandwidth.
I'm not worried about that. I've got, I don't know if I stopped.
Were you the one that started the recording?
Well, I started it. It looked like it was actually running.
Okay, so someone else did.